Yo, what's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormy B Man, and I am back. I am back for another Kung Fu Film Focus. And it's been a minute since Stormy has had a chance to revisit the Kung Fu Film Review category on my channel, because we've been inundated with so much boxing. And that has been the primary focus, as should be. But today had a little bit of a, what you call, post-holiday holiday. So Stormy B Man wanted to come out here and talk about one of the films that I have had on the itinerary for a while. Today we're going to cover Jet Li's Hero from 2002. A wonderful classic in the wuxia genre, which is wuxia is the swordplay genre of martial art films. And as we, get ready to go into that, want to say thank you for everyone who decided to stop by the channel to hear Stormy cover another Kung Fu classic. There is a special place for us that love these films, and I am trying to continue to uphold the community of those of us who like and want to talk about and share these films. If you want to share this stream to Facebook, Stormy haven't figured out how to do that, how to simulcast on multiple platforms at the same time. I'm an OG and I'm still trying to figure it out. But anybody out there that finds themselves wanting to share this, please do so, because there are groups out there that love the Kung Fu film genre. I know I've seen on Facebook there's a ton of them, and people really like these movies and want to talk about them as much as they can. So as we bring that into calling it into mind, I want to have that consideration, because those that love and follow the genre, they deserve to be able to talk about these films and see as much material on them as possible. So with that being said, just know that that's what we are here to do. We got a couple of people out there in the chat. OG Ninja is out there, says salute. I hope that name is specific towards your like of the Kung Fu film there, OG Ninja. I don't want to assume. So if it is, great name, brother. Great name. Zeno is out there. Always a great supporter of the channel and the content. He says, what's good, family? As Stormy B Man 100. Yes, sir. And hey, listen, we'll be back later tonight for the Friday night chop session where we'll talk boxing. But this afternoon, I picked this day in particular because there's something to be said about some things that are happening out there. For those of you who may not know this, one of my favorite and also the favorite Kung Fu film star for me is the legendary Bruce Lee. Okay? And Bruce Lee, at the time that I was growing up and taking in these films, was someone who really set the industry on fire as far as Kung Fu films. And he was a person that he was different as far as movie stars. He came out there with the kicks and the punches and speed and everything, darting around. And American audiences first got a chance to witness Lee on the little screen, the TV, as he debuted as Kato, the sidekick and companion to the superhero, the Green Hornet. And that was back in 1966 when they were producing that TV show that the producers of Batman had come out. And Bruce Lee was picked to be the Asian counterpart and assistant to Britt Reed, who was the Green Hornet. And that was American audience's first chance to get a look-see at what Lee did. As acting roles were scarce in American television, which he also played some bit roles in Here Comes the Bride, and there were shows like Blondie, and then later other shows like what was it, Ironside, Longstreet. Lee had an opportunity to, work behind the scenes in films like The Wrecking Crew as action director, and he rubbed elbows with famous American Hollywood stars such as James Coburn, Steve McQueen, and they always did what they could to help him get jobs. But as he taught martial arts, being the thing that he did first and foremost, a ton of those people at that time who took a liking to martial arts signed up for classes, and he was able to charge the Hollywood stars high prices for his services, and that's how he fed his family. But also let it be known that when things started to get a little tight for him, like around 1969, 1970, a couple of his American friends said, "Hey, why don't you, go back over to Hong Kong and try to make movies over there with what you're doing, your talents and everything, and this kind of action cinema that's taken off. You might be able to do something there." And so Lee did return home after being a former child star, where he made about 20 movies as a kid from the age of 6 years old to about 18. He starred in a lot of dramas and dramatic comedies and things like that, sort of like Mickey Rooney. And when he returned to Hong Kong in 1970, he wanted to try his hat in the arena of action films. And the reason that we're speaking about that is because today, November 27th, is Bruce Lee's birthday. So Stormy wanted to come out here and pay homage and acknowledge to the Kung Fu film star who was Bruce Lee, and acknowledge that today would have been his 80th birthday. He passed away July 20th, 1973, and it's hard to believe that for almost 50 years, guy's been away, but his name is still synonymous with action films and martial arts and kung fu. Matter of fact, a lot of people didn't even know the term kung fu when Bruce started speaking on it and teaching it to Westerners in the mid-60s and early 70s. And believe it or not, his films were not released in the U.S. until he had passed away. So in 1973. So that being said, as an adult making martial art films, Lee went on to make 4 films before he passed away. And the first 2 were a part of a 2-picture deal with Golden Harvest Studios, where he made The Big Boss, and then he followed that up with Fist of Fury. The American titles of those films were Fist of Fury and The Chinese Connection. The reason for the mix-up in the titles were simple. At the time when the movies were released in the U.S., Lee, who had passed away in his films, the titles took on a little bit of a marketing ploy. The Big Boss, which was a film that was about a drug kingpin using ice factory workers and preying upon the community. And Lee ended up being the hero in that film to rescue his colleagues from the nefarious hands of the drug lord. And in the early 70s, we had a lot of films that featured drugs and the establishment and all of that stuff. So this kind of was synonymous. So the Big Boss was retitled Fist of Fury, and Fist of Fury was retitled The Chinese Connection to cash in on the French Connection, which was, with Gene Hackman. These guys were cops and robbers and drug lords in that film. And when the movies were brought to the U.S., the film reels got switched into cans, the canisters. It's as simple as that. That's how the movies ended up with their American titles. And a lot of people didn't know that, but this is just how things were done, especially back then when they didn't pay much attention to these films as they were being brought over here, because they would dump them into the urban areas for filler, for action and quick bucks. But what happened is these films and the genre that it created took off big time, and it introduced a whole new audience, a whole new aspect of action to a whole new audience, and American people ate these films alive. They loved it. And since Lee had already passed on by the time his films arrived, he became an even bigger star than he was in Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong his films were breaking records. But when they finally released his films in the U.S., it really established him. But the people wanted more of him, and there was not much more to come down the pipeline, because his fourth film that he made, Enter the Dragon, was released just weeks after his death. And here you have a huge void. Now you have this mega star who's not even on the scene anymore, and it was one of the weirdest situations that we've seen in cinematic history. So, but Bruce would have been 80 years old today. His third film, which was released after Big Boss and Fist of Fury, was Way of the Dragon. And that's the film where he wrote, directed, produced, and acted in, all on his own. It was a total Bruce Lee production and promotion. And this film is very famous for he having a third act showdown with then American heavyweight martial art karate champion Chuck Norris. And they fought a battle in the Roman Colosseum. And that's considered, even to this day, one of the greatest martial arts action segments or fight scenes captured on film. So that's what that was. And shortly after he made this film, he was trying to produce another film on his own, which we later would find out would be titled Game of Death. But he put that film on hold when Hollywood had recognized his Asian box office numbers. They were like, oh, who is this guy over here breaking all these records and everything? So they reached out and they was like, oh, that's Bruce from the Green Hornet. Hey, Bruce, why don't you come on and make a movie with us? And Bruce was like, hey, man, I was over there with you guys for 10 years. You didn't want to do nothing with me. He was like, I'm not interested. And then they kept coming at him, and they said, hey, how about we write and produce a film for you, and we allow you to film it over there where you are, Hong Kong. And that's when the dollar signs went off in his eyes and the cash register ringing up in his ears, and he said, okay, that sounds like something I can manage. And that paved the way for the film that we would have on the horizon. It was called Blood and Steel. But as they finished the production of that film in April of 1973, just months before Lee died, he wrote to the executives over there and he said, hey, I would like to have this film title changed. Since it's my first Hollywood-backed film and it's going to be my first internationally released film, he said, I would like the title to be Enter the Dragon. Okay? And the whole idea in Lee's mind about the title of the film was that he was being introduced to a global audience on a world-class stage of a Hollywood production. And as a Chinese, he wanted that notoriety to come, and his nickname in Chinese was Lei Xu Long, which is the little dragon. And he was called that throughout his childhood, and when he was starring in films as a kid, they called him the little dragon. So he wanted the world to know the arrival of the little dragon was in this Hollywood film production, Blood and Steel. He wanted that title changed and said, hey, this is Enter the Dragon. I'm kicking it to the worldwide box office stage, and I want people to know who Bruce Lee is. So with a little bit of arguing back and forth and threats going on and not making movies for anybody anymore, this, that, and the other, they finally relented, and they decided to call the film Enter the Dragon. So Bruce Lee, his final completed film from Hollywood would be Enter the Dragon. And it is the film that is most famous for Bruce performance. It raked in the most box office. It's in the American Cinematic Library for most grossed film over the budget that it was made under and everything. It was like everything he could have asked for, but he did not live to see the success of the film or the success that would come his way off of this film. So it's with tragedy that that story comes to that end, but we're not focusing on tragedy. And it's an acknowledgement that today, November 27th, is Bruce Lee's birthday. And I just thought that I would open the show on this, touching on that, giving respect to my favorite Kung Fu film star. And we'll go shortly into the film Hero. But for any of you out there that didn't know any of the information that I was just able to pass on, just a little, tidbit of letting you guys know that Stormy, even though that Bruce is my favorite film star, I haven't done one review of his films yet, with the exception of Game of Death, which that final completed film was not his idea or project. I did it for particular reasons, and I put that out there in that video when I did do so. So know that if you go back into my archives and check out Game of Death, I did it as a real critical viewpoint of the film. Now, know this as well. Since he's my favorite film star and everything, notice that I haven't done any of his films yet. Why? Because there's so much kung fu out here that we just have to get through a lot of stuff. Everybody heard about Bruce Lee, just like everybody heard about Jackie Chan. So I get to these other films and relish the opportunity to talk them up with you guys and ladies and let you guys know that I just, I love the genre within itself, man. So that's what I have to say about that. So, it is what it is. We got Eric R out there who's joined us. He says, salute as Sensei B-Man. Okay, I'm feeling that, Eric R. Salute to you. Zeno says 70s and 80s weren't really great film eras, to be honest. Zeno, you must be mad. No Filter Tony Boxing is out there, says, I remember seeing The Big Boss in the movie theater when I was young. Zeno is also saying the Kung Fu. See, you even misspelling the word Kung Fu. So, Zeno, if this ain't your cup of tea, it ain't your cup of tea. But don't you mess on my genre of Kung Fu, because I'll come for you, bruh. I'll come for you hard. You understand? He says the Kung Fu films in the 70s really revolutionized that quick cut style action movies that is overdone today. No, it didn't. See, this is why you need to come and check out Stormy B Man's Kung Fu Film Focus, so I could give you a bit of history on these films, Zeno, because in those films, what they were most known for were the long tracking shots, not quick cutaway shots, but long tracking shots, as they had professional martial artists and Chinese opera performers creating this choreography and this wonderful action. The only cuts were when they were using fantastic leaps or aerial type battles or something like that. But most of the action took 100 moves from the performers per shot. You know, where you would see guys going at it, doing certain techniques or whatever before they cut to a different angle and things like that. You always knew the best martial artists in these films and genre when they would set the camera up in one position and have these guys do a number of movements and actions and reactions before either changing to another angle or a different shot where it ended with someone getting a blow that knocked them down, or someone else came into the fray or whatever. So that was one of the things that was really noted about these films. Trampolines were used in the early days, and then wire effects were always around, but they were very crude. For a moment, it was really hokey. And then in the late 70s, probably like around 1978 or so, they had finally figured out a great way to use wire work, and films like Last Hurrah for Chivalry, Duel to the Death, The Sword, mostly Golden Harvest productions. Those films began to depict the action with flight and fighters fighting on wires much better than they had ever done in the history of the genre. So they really did get going with that, and so much to the degree that by the late, the late 90s, when the Wachowski brothers wanted to do their sci-fi action epic, The Matrix, they went to Hong Kong and brought back one of the greatest choreographers from the industry over there, Yuen Wu Ping, who you guys heard me speak about on Kung Fu Film Focus before, and they brought him over so he can incorporate the wire work with the science of the camera usage that they were using, these multiple cameras and wires and stuff to hype up their futuristic sci-fi action that would be displayed in The Matrix. So in this film, Hero, we saw wonderful wire work again in the vein of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which came a little bit before this. But this film in particular, Tony Ting Soo Chung, who was a Hong Kong action choreographer, also a part-time action actor, he would choreograph particularly swordplay action, and he did such a wonderful job with Duel to the Death that they brought him back for this film. And this is where you see some of the best wire work and everything. Hero is a tremendous film. It's very artsy in the sense of like the cinematography, the colors and the settings and environments, even the wardrobes that they wear, and the color schematics from when the action scenes take place and how they change with a wash of red, a wash of blue, a wash of teal, a wash of another one, there was white. So all of this represented in this film in particular with the talents that they had. They had Jet Li as the star, who was playing a hero, who was playing a character named Nameless. You had Donnie Yen, who was playing a warrior who had vowed to take down the king of Qing. And Maggie Cheung, the beautiful actress who was very noted from films like The Heroic Trio, and Tony Leung, little Tony Leung, because there's a big Tony and a little Tony. Tony Leung, who also was a tremendous actor in the Hong Kong film circuit, and then Zhang Ziyi, who also played in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and coming off of her fame that catapulted her, she was playing Young Dragon in this film, protege of Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung, who were a couple in the film. This film was a tremendously shot by director Zhang Yimou, and he brought a little bit of that Kurosawa type aspect to this film and story, as this movie was presented in a sense of like the old Rashomon film, where a story is being told from different points of view, and you have to try to figure through how the story is being told that, you know, who is telling the truth and what is most likely the real meat of the story. Let me go to the chat real quick. Let's see. Eric R says, still pissed to this day that they didn't let him star in his show Kung Fu. Well, Eric R, if you didn't know this, on Netflix there's a series called The Warrior. That's actually taken from the notes that Bruce Lee had. Not so much the TV show Kung Fu, but that show The Warrior, commissioned by his daughter Shannon Lee, who gave the rights for this to be produced. The Warrior is more of the story that Lee wanted to play in back then when he presented it to the Warner Brothers Studios and they were rejecting him. Although they did put Kung Fu television show on, it is thought by many that that was the vehicle that Bruce was looking to make, but it was woefully wrong and incorrect. It's The Warrior that he wanted to make, and it's a pretty nice action series. It's on Netflix right now. I've got the first season of it on Blu-ray. Pretty good stuff going on there. Bruce was so far ahead of his time with his ideas of what he wanted to do. B&B Boxing is out there, says if Bruce Lee was actually able to finish Game of Death, man, what we would have got though. Cold, yeah. His idea and concept for that, and it was changing on almost on a weekly basis there, B&B, because Bruce came up with some concepts, and as he started filming the scenes, he started changing things. So even the film footage with he taking on Ji Hung Jae, the gold belt Hapkido expert, he was thinking of reshooting that segment with Angela Mao and getting rid of Ji Hung Jae. So what that would have been like, Bruce fighting Angela Mao, that would have been interesting right there. The biggest female Kung Fu film star at that time. So yeah, that would have been awesome. OG Ninja says that "be like water" quote is what sticks in my mind for me. The perfect example for that quote is Michael Jordan. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Eric R says, my birthday as well, November 27th. Happy birthday to you, Eric R, man. You're in good company, man. Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius rule it, man. That's right. Stormy got a birthday coming up very soon. Let's see. Zeno says, oh, damn. Okay, Stormy. He's laughing. We checking him on that earlier. That's right, man. You know, I have to stand up for my genre, man. You can't come in here crapping on my genre like, oh, those guys were nothing. Yeah, that's how those Japanese was acting when Bruce Lee entered that school, too. And you saw what happened to them. He tore them all a new one. Eric R says, laugh out loud. He isn't mad at Zeno. Stormy B-Man is passionate. Don't take it personal. It's a teaching moment. Take your ass whooping like the rest of us. There you go. See, Eric R knows what's up. He's been in class. Plus, he's a Sag. He knows. Sagittarius knows, right? Zeno says, I know Stormy ain't mad. He says, Rashid Work says, peace, Stormy B-Man, and peace to everyone. Peace to you, brother. And let's see what we got here. Eric says, I wish Donnie got to show more of his work. He really don't get the recognition in the States till Ip Man. Yeah, that's true. Donnie Yen, what a talent, man. And the fact that he showed up in this film, his fight scene, which I'll be getting to in a moment, with Jet Li was the second time that they fought on screen against one another, and the first time being in Once Upon a Time in China Part 1, where Donnie was playing an official, and the official had to take on Wong Fei Hong, played by Jet Li. And it was a great fight scene then, and people were clamoring, when are these two guys, these two martial art film icons, gonna cross paths again? And so here in Hero, we open up with another fight scene between Donnie and Jet. So I'll get to that in just a second. Rashid is asking, how do you like it, Stormy B-Man the Warrior? I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You can definitely see what Bruce was trying to do with that idea, because those were all taken from his notes. He had written this outline for this show, The Warrior. Eric R. says, okay, I'll check that out, Stormy. Did you ever see Into the Badlands? I love the first season. It's a dope show. Yeah, another very good action show, man. Zeno is laughing. Rashid Roy says, Warrior is a good show in my opinion. Yep. Shadow 979 is out there, says, salute Stormy B-Man, my Kung Fu brother. Yes, sir. OG Ninja says, I saw Donnie Yen in Blade 2. Yep, he was in there. And Eric R. says, thank you, Stormy B-Man, for the birthday wish. We in good company, Stormy. Yep, fellow Sagittarius. Yep, Bruce Lee, you and me. So we can deal with it from that standpoint right there. But hey, man, for those who hadn't seen Hero, Hero is a very decent martial art film, and I had thought I would show you something regarding it, only if it'll show up properly. Let's see.
Black Friday has arrived, so get the 5G.
Alex Rider, with British Secret Intelligence.
Let's see. Let's see here. I'll try this and see what we can do for you guys. Yeah, man. Hero is an excellent expose on the Chinese wuxia genre. That was the trailer for the film, the international trailer. And I just thought I would share that because I can't show the film itself, but that trailer just to share with you. Now, the story where we pick up is like I said, Jet Li is playing he's playing a prefect. A prefect is like a sheriff over a province or whatever, and he has an assortment of soldiers under his watch or whatever, but they're like police officers, right? And the film opens with Jet going after Donnie Yen's character, who is a retired warrior who actually attempted an assassination on the king of Qing. Okay, and when he tried to come after the king, Donnie Yen's character, he failed, but he, was wanted by the empire. So the empire sent, Jet Li and the rest of the prefects and these constables out to apprehend him. And the king, who was trying to conquer each province in China where he can expand his empire. He wanted to be the ruler of an entire whole China, and then he wanted to start expanding beyond China. So as this story kicks off, we're talking about, this was set, let's see, I think it was set in 227 BC, the king of Qing, and he wanted to expand his kingdom. But there were people who were assortment of martial artists, and they broke off into groups and sects, like they wanted to oppose this rulership because they felt like these people who were of that ilk, they were they only wanted to rape and pillage the nation and the people and the civilians. So Nameless comes along for Donnie Yen's character, who was named Sky, and he was noted for his battles with the spear. Okay, and he kept the spear under a leather wrap, right? The tip of it, the cutting blade, and he was a noted fighter. So as they sent guys after him, Donnie Yen's character, he was like very, how can I say it? He was the kind of guy, like he was very arrogant, in his martial prowess. So as these constables came for him, he felt like, they weren't on his level or whatever. And as they came to attack him and stuff like that, he was just dealing with these guys mercilessly, I should say, sorry. And his character was very prolific. But it wasn't until Jet's character came along after he defeated those prefects. When Jet's character came along, Donnie was like, "Oh, so what can you do as an official?" And Jet Li said, I'm here to arrest you for the king." So that began their battle, and their rematch from Once Upon a Time in China took place here with these two guys, tremendous warriors, man. And for them to come out after each other like that, it was a great opening to the scene, with the rhythmic drum beats and everything, along with their action that we got a chance to see on the screen, reminiscent of Crouching Tiger, with some of the action in that film. I think like once something is successful, no one does this more than the Hong Kong film industry. when something is successful, everybody else copycats it, and it becomes like, it's like, my goodness, like 20 films doing the same stuff. It's like nobody wants to be innovative. It's like when Bruce was popular back then, everybody was running around going, whoa, you know, like that, those crazy yells and stuff. Before that, they weren't doing that. It was like, after Bruce, it was like everybody, and even to this day, you got guys making that noise and stuff, or thumbing their nose, or, you know, giving that look or whatever. It's like, that's what Bruce had, his own thing, and that's why it was successful. But here in Hero, we got a chance to see these two gentlemen going at it with their prowess, and man, it's a great opening fight scene between Jet and Donnie. They really brought it with their action here, and Jet with the sword, Donnie with the spear, and this action choreographed again, like I said, by Tony Ching Su Tung. Man, it's some great stuff, and both of these martial artists could live up to performing the acts. That was the other thing. When you have guys who can perform the choreography, and you don't need a stunt man to come in. Although Jet would use a stunt man more as his career went on, because he suffered some serious injuries on the set of making films. Just around that time when he started to make Once Upon a Time in China, he broke his leg really bad, and he got doubled a lot. So, you know, it's unfortunate that the injuries, because that's another thing that people don't talk about, the injuries that certain martial artists get, you know, making these films. But yeah, what a tremendous fight scene between these two guys as Donnie and Jet go after each other, man. And it's the type of action that you really enjoy with everything that they do. Everything they do, and the music that plays in the backdrop. There's an old man playing the that instrument, that flat instrument that looks like a violin, but it's flat. I think it's called the pa, something like that. And he plays it, and they tell him, because he's gonna get up and leave it right before they get ready to fight, and they says, "Oh man," they was like, "Please play another tune," and they pay him some money, some tails or whatever, and the old man sits back down and starts playing. He's playing and they're fighting. That's a great scene, and it's raining and stuff. So like I said, this film was very artfully done, and it was the type of action, although it took some things away from Crouching Tiger, but didn't wholeheartedly capture it, but it was original in its own sense of how the action flowed. Like, there are some scenes where Jet and Donnie are soaring through the air in slow motion, and then they get into their fight, and their fight is very fast paced, but there are these pauses in the action where they're looking at each other, and they say they're fighting the fight in their mind and all of that. It really raised the level of the quality of this film, and it was one of those scenes that wasn't color factored in. When you think about when they were having the fight in their mind, that's when the sequence was in black and white. But the fact that they were fighting in color, it meant that was the most true aspect of the story that's being told, because the film opens with this fight scene, but the true opening of the film is when Nameless, the character by Jet Li, goes to the palace of the emperor, and he presents with him the weapons of the other rebels that the emperor had put the decree out to have them captured or killed or whatever. So he had Donnie Yen's spear, he had Maggie Chung's and Tony Leung's swords, and to bring those before the emperor as a conqueror, that gives you not only favor with the emperor, but someone who has been able to accomplish this. And the emperor, the king, says, "Hey, I haven't been able to bring these guys down throughout my entire reign." He was like, "And you were able to do this." He wants to know the story. So the story begins with Jet telling the king, what took place. And that it's like a flashback of each incident of him coming across these prolific rebels who challenged the king. Now, the thing about that, as the story goes on and the king is listening to Jet tell him, the story, the king is wondering, like, how does this simple man from a province just able to defeat these true warriors? Then he begins to wonder, is Jet telling him the truth or not? So therefore begins the story of how they go into one situation to another, and the color schemes change with the backdrops. So that part of the storytelling was well done, and you really have to give it to the director of the film for doing it that way, because as they tell this story and as the truth possibly unfolds, there's so much more to what is being said or what's not being said, So even when he comes across Tony Leung and Maggie Chung, Jet's character, he has to battle them, right? Because in order to take them down, he's got to take them down and then take their weapon. And then that's how he presents it to the king. But they decide, Tony Leung and Maggie, they decide that Jet might be the guy that they can conspire with to assassinate the king if they go along with what Jet says. And Jet is trying to prove to them that his prowess is such that he created no one is allowed to be within 10 paces of the king. So they're saying, like, he must have a idea or a plan to kill the king. And when they find out that his special sword stroke is, death within 10 paces, that's when they decide, okay, we'll give him a chance. And so Maggie and Jet have a fight, and their fight ends up with her, supposedly being killed, but he only strikes her that injures her. And so he and Tony have a sword battle where they test one another's prowess as well. And even with that, it's supposed to be a sort of a play on what could really actually happen, but it's to get these guys to cooperate with Jet's character. And this flying sword is Maggie Chung's character, and Tony Leung's character is a broken sword. So it's like the two of them were matchless, right? And they had an invasion on the king's palace where they had raided the place, and they were going to attack the king, and they almost had him. They almost had him, but at the same time, the king was like, as he was battling those guys, he was like, these two are, too formidable. The king was worried for his life. That's why he emptied out the palace and didn't let anybody come within 10 paces after that. It was because of flying snow and broken sword. They had went through his army like a hot knife through butter. And when they made it to him in the palace, the king was like trying to defend them off, and he couldn't hardly deal with them. And so he told his guards, he was like, y'all just stay clear of the palace. If any assassins come in here, I'm going to know who they are and where they are, because nobody's going to be inside the palace or whatever. So when Jet got that chance to sit within 10 paces of the king was very leery. He was like, these two were so bad, I couldn't even stop them. He was like, he was like, you know, Tony Leung's character with his sword, he just scratched it. He didn't even cut the neck, cut it. He scratched it like if you scrape with your fingernail. So that's how prowess he had, you know, with his sword. And Maggie got mad at him because she was like, why didn't you kill him? And he was like, the king shouldn't be killed. So his whole thing, he changed his mind after they went through all those soldiers and everything and got there, could have killed him. And it created a rift between them. And they were a couple that loved each other tremendously and everything. And their little protege was Zhang Yi from Crouching Tiger. But Maggie's character was mad at Broken Sword because they did all that work, damn near killed the king, and he changed his mind at the last second. She was like, we could have had him dead. So, you know, but that's what I want to go back to the chat for a moment. Eric R. says, right as Stormy B. Man, movies stay repeating like everyone. They did the Matrix pause in the air scene. Yeah, that drove you crazy when you see it in almost every movie. Charlie's Angels even had a stupid scene like that. It was crazy. Silverstream Loma 2011 says, what's good? What's good with you? And Zeno says, I need to check out Stormy. Peace, bro. Have a good evening. Hey, Zeno, thanks for stopping by, man. And brush up on your kung fu, man, because it's like, you know, Stormy got this stuff out here and got some other good reviews in the archive. So don't forget to check us out. So Jet getting to be within the graces of the king, you know, being able to be within 10 paces of the king. And right here in this little clip here, you see him sitting within 10 paces of the king, and he's explaining to the king what he did to get there, to arrive after defeating his cohorts or whatever. And the aspect that the king was trying to figure out was, why did Broken Sword decide not to kill me when he had the chance? And Jet Li tells him, I worked hard to uncover that myself. So he said, I brought something with me, and it was a scroll, that white and red scroll that you see behind the king. That's what Jet brought. And basically, he explains to the king that Broken Sword, who was a master of calligraphy, and also his calligraphy was the key to his sword play with his martial arts. So Jet realized this, and so he went to learn the calligraphy from Broken Sword. And as he looked at it, and the king asked him, what did you ask him to write? And he said, I asked him for a number of ways to write the character sword, okay, or like sword play or whatever. And as Broken Sword practiced this and wrote it, and then he got upset. He and his wife had a falling out about this whole situation, and in his anger, he wrote this script that you see here that the king is studying. And although it's the character for sword, he actually wrote all under heaven. Okay, now all under heaven, what that is supposed to mean, is supposed to be a explanation for a belief of unity amongst the Chinese. All under heaven means that the king, who is looking to conquer and conquer and conquer, is the only one in position to unite all of the provinces, all of the states, all of the people under his rulership. And so by killing this king who wants to conquer everything, they feel like it would just be more tyrants who would come up, or Broken Sword felt that it would be more tyrants who would come up and just continue to pillage the communities of people in the various provinces and everything. But under a true ruler, and someone who sought to keep the people united, the philosophy would be under one rulership, we could be one. You understand? Because the Chinese were noted for fighting amongst each other. Sound familiar? Yeah. But they were fighting each other all the time and everything. But someone who was willing to unite them for a single purpose, for everything, was perceived to be a good thing by Broken Sword. So as the king studied the glyph that he wrote, he said, now, my greatest enemy is also the man who understands me most. He was like, this is why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. He said, I am actually trying to unite all under heaven through my conquest, because we have too much suffering from the people. We have too much. He's like, I'm trying to bring it all together. But in order to do this, I have to take over to implement my plan. And so Jet Li asked him, he was like, so what you're saying is you won't stop where you are? And he's like, no, why should I stop? The king is saying to him, he was like, I intend to, conquer it all and expand so that we all can be a united people on a united front, this and that, under this single rule or whatever. So Jet was looking at him with trepidation, like, oh man, this guy, is he a power demon or whatever, So he's kind of wondering about the king. So as he uncovers what is supposed to be, what's thought of as a means of going after one another in a positive sense, Jet's character, he's now having second thoughts about the king. And the king is here with a single purpose, but for all involved. Now, when he gets ready to attack the king, he has a chance to kill the king. But there is something that makes him hesitant. And in that little clip that I showed where he was sitting before the king, you could see the torches on the candles that are before them, and Jet's sitting before the king. You can see the flames are blowing toward the king. That's his chi, that's his energy that's moving. And the king is wondering, like, what is this guy thinking he's gonna do? Is he gonna attack me or whatever? So he's like, I take it that with everybody who's tried to come in and kill me or assassinate me or whatever, your skills must be most better than all of them, because you're only allowed within 10 paces. He was like, so tell me, what you've studied and everything, what is your killer move or whatever? And Jet tells him, death within 10 paces. So the king is like, oh. And he was like, my guards are already way on the outside, right? And there's nobody in the palace except for you and I. So I guess I'm at your mercy or whatever. So the king takes his own sword and throws it at Jet. And it lands in the table that he's sitting at there. And he turns his back to Jet. And he's like, well, go ahead and do what you got to do. So Jet takes the sword and he decides to attack the king. But as he goes toward the king, what happens is he realizes that, when he gets to the king, everything that they discussed and the impasse that they have arrived, that he understands the king like Broken Sword did. So he elects not to kill the king, and thereby hoping the king can just unite all under heaven. It's some deep stuff, man, and it's culture based. So for an American or a Western person checking all of this out, if you don't understand Chinese culture, if you don't understand the means of how the people live with faith and spirit and national pride and things like that, you won't understand the particularities of this story and how how it goes about. But it's tremendous in the aspect of brethren and brotherhood. That's what it lies in. And that's why I said this film is a tremendous art film as well as a wuxia martial arts film. It covers a tremendous amount of story and dignity and pride with the people. And this king was the one who went ahead and built the Great Wall of China, where they looked to keep out all of those that had no idea of what he was representing. Keep them on the outside. You know what I mean? And that's what that was about. So, let me go to the chat. Rashid Rourke says, good breakdown, Stormy B, man. I haven't seen Hero in a while. Thank you for that, Rashid Rourke. Eric R says, I always love that the names of the characters, they are simple but really iconic. And Rashid says, sidebar info, if anyone has the channel El Rey, they have a Kung Fu marathon going on right now. Yeah, Kurt Sugar told me about that. I don't have cable anymore, so I don't get the El Rey channel no more. And I'm like, man, but almost all the movies they show, I got them anyway. So it's like I can have my own marathon. So, but appreciate that, Rashid Rourke. So yeah, as Jet decided not to kill the king, he was going to leave the palace at that point. And all of the palace guards followed him as he made his trek toward the gate. And when he made his trek toward the gate, the king was being admonished by his soldiers. They were saying, he tried to break in and he tried to assassinate you, king. You can't let this man go. You can't let this man go. You got to take him out. You got to take him out. So the king was looking like, but this is a man who understands me, and the people that he conspired with, they understand me. He was like, feeling a sense of resignation that he didn't want to execute Jet's character. And they kept telling him, they was like, you can't let him go, you can't let him go or whatever. So eventually Jet's character had to face death. And when he faced death, the thousands of arrows that they shot at him as he stood near the door, because they didn't open the door for him to leave the palace. He stood before the door and turned around and faced the army. And they launched thousands of arrows after him. And so that was his fate. That the king had to do this for the respect of his constituents, those who followed him. But he didn't want to kill Jet's character because he realized that Jet's character was a good man. Now, that being said, it's one of the most heroic endings that you would ever see in a Kung Fu film. This was something that was tremendous. I remember watching the film for the very first time, and I felt a little emotional about it. It was like, because after investing in the characters of the film, which is supposed to be most important, right? I realized that these guys, that the makers of this film, they were able to convey through action what we usually get through acting. Okay? And dude, it was really on a high level. This was like something tremendous. And as the film ends, it tells you that the character that Jet played, Nameless, who in the film, that's what he went by, Jet's character. But in real life, the character name was Gene Key. Gene Key was the guy who tried to face off against the king. And they said that he was allowed to be buried in a nameless tomb. Okay? So nobody would ever know his name. And that way his family wouldn't be disgraced. Because remember, we talk about face and pride and the the whole thing about your family name and things like that, had they marked his grave and who he was and what he had done, his family would also be taken upon as subjects to be put down or put to death, or something very negative, in the sense, because it's your family who wanted to murder our emperor and stuff like that. So he was buried in a nameless tomb or grave, and that was to save his family. But this is how it works. And the film was great. The action was on another level. The cinematography and the visuals were tremendously outstanding. Hero is one for the record books. It's one to really pay attention to. The film, it did very well at the box office. It grossed $53 million in the U.S. and Canada, $123 million in other places, for a worldwide total of $177 million. And back in 2002, that's a lot of money for a martial art wuxia film. Okay, it's one of those things that you have to really respect, that the makers of this film, the music was awesome. It was scored by Tan Dong, who also conducted the China Philharmonic Orchestra and Chorus. I wanted to play some of the soundtrack for this as I did the review, and I saw that I was going to get a copyright strike for doing so. So I decided not to put that music up there. But it's tremendous music for this. The lake scene where they fought on the lake, Tony Leung and Jet, the water was completely still, and they had to wait for days at a time for the water to get that way, where there were no waves or ripples. The water had to be completely still, so it would give the certain kind of effect that the director was looking for. It's a tremendous film. The film tells different version of the story of how an anonymous hero, which is nameless, overcomes three rivals to assassinate the king. And the thing is that it just resonated on a multiple level. I remember when Bruce Lee was alive, and they were talking about his ideas about films for the future, and he was saying that we have to have more story-oriented films, character-based films, where the audience, you can watch the action if you want, but you have to leave enough substance there that people can look deeper and deeper if they want, And he said this way back in 1972. So it's like, here we are finally getting these type of films. And you have a huge kung fu film star in Jet Li, and also in Donnie Yen, who are able to not only carry the physical aspect of that type of storytelling, but also they have upped their game in their acting ability to do the same. And that's tremendous. That's something that we haven't seen in martial art films, on a regular basis. We see it from time to time, but there's just so much, and they were able to do it with this film. So, but that's what I have for you guys on Hero, a tremendous wuxia epic, and this was definitely an epic, my people. This film was brought about with, there was so much that it touched on, that it was done so well. Director Zhang Yimou doesn't get enough credit over here in the U.S. He's put together some tremendous films, and he's the type of man who has vision. And the way he was able to map this out, he did it wonderfully. did it wonderfully. So, but yeah. So here on Bruce Lee's birthday, we talk about one of the greatest wuxia epics ever made in Hero from 2002. From 2002, and I tell you, there hasn't been anything to top this one since. It's really on another level. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, Quentin Tarantino put out a Blu-ray on it and put his name attached to it because he likes Hong Kong and Asian films himself, but it's not a Quentin Tarantino film. He just helped bring it over to the U.S. audiences. But there is a Chinese version of the film where they're speaking Mandarin, has wonderful sound and everything, English subtitles. And that's the best way to watch this film, with its English subtitles, because you get a sense of the nobility that the characters speak with and the chastity. So that's what it's all about. But yeah, that's Hero. Stormy B-Man wanted to bring this to you guys, let you know that when it comes down to the genre of martial art films, there are some films that are like huge steps above others, and hey, this is one of them. You know, this is one of them. So go out there and check it out. There's some few others out there that I could recommend, but we'll catch you on the next time, and we talk about some more wuxia and kung fu. This is Stormy B-Man. Thank you for watching and tuning in. Don't forget, hit that like button on your way out if you didn't hit it coming in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel, because we got it cooking over here with the boxing. We got the kung fu films. And don't forget, Stormy B-Man still be doing the dining dish as well. So we have it all going on for you. We have it going, and we ain't stopping. So that's it for now. Catch you guys on the next one. And peace to you all. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll be back later this evening as we have the Friday night chop session. Peace. Stay safe.